Welcome, Shabbat Shalom. Glad to have everyone with us this evening. We're going to begin with a beautiful song, Lela, words from the book of Genesis when Abraham goes off to a new land. We're on page 645 in our Sidurim, very top of the page. A special thank you to Alma, Windy, and Jolene for the music this evening, and to Lela for recording this special service. Let's continue with another favorite for Shabbat evening, Ma Yafeh Hayom. We're in the middle of 128 in the words. Over the Shabbat candles, and you'll light the candles in the comfort of your own home, in your living room, your dining room. First of meditation, and then we'll sing the blessing together on 121. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu Let's read together. We're in the middle of 124. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May the synagogue be for all who enter the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. So we continue with the beautiful welcoming Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat. Psalm 95, Lechune Ranana, we're on page 130 in our prayer books. Raise a shout for a rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. Together, page 133, we're reading from a portion of Psalm 97. Adonai is sovereign, let the earth exult and the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God, righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai, and acclaim God's holy name. So let's turn to the beautiful words of Lecha Dodi. Remember that the Sabbath is, so to speak, the people Israel are the bride of the Almighty, of God Almighty, and so this Sabbath song, which was created in the late 1500s by the Kabbalists who lived in northern Israel, in Safad, exemplifies or personifies the relationship between the Almighty God and the people of Israel. And it's a fascinating series of verses, and by the way, in the olden days, rabbis or poets, composers could never put their name to any special piyut or poetry or song, but the verses of Lecha Dodi, the first letter of each verse is a letter of the author's name. His name was Shlomo Alkabetz, Solomon Alkabetz, who was a contemporary of Isaac Luria. And so the first verse starts with a shin for Shlomo, and then Lamed in the second verse, and then Mem in the third verse, and so on. So we know that he, in fact, was the composer of these verses. last verse, you may rise if you're able. So let's continue singing Shalom Aleichem, a traditional Shabbat melody. In the prayer books, it's on 142. I think all of us know this beautiful song by heart. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lechem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Archuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We continue with the Hatzi Kaddish, page 144. We all sing together the half Kaddish. Yitkada v'yikada Shemei Rabba b'yamad yivrach yirutei amlich malchutei v'chayechonu v'yomechon v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael Agala b'agala u'bizman karib Imru Amen Yeshmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Yomei Amaya Yivarach Yivarach Yishtabach Yivar Yitramam Yitnaseh Yitadav Yitaleh Yitalach Shmei Kedusha Brichu Lela Minko Bechata Veshirata Tushbechata Venechemata Tamiran Yama Bimru Amen. We continue with the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. Baruch Hu et Adonai Amorach Baruch Adonai Amorach Leolam Vaed. You may be seated if you're feeling comfortable or you're already seated. Let's continue with the first blessing that leads up to, there are two blessings that always precede the Shema Yisrael. The first one is giving thanks for creation and God's handiwork. It's known as Ma'ariv Aravim on page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim. The second blessing, giving thanks for Torah and all of the commandments, together on 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Together the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. We continue with the words of V'ahavta from Deuteronomy. We're on page 154. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'lechtecha v'derech V'shachpecha v'kumecha, v'kshartam liota yadecha, v'hayu l'totafot bein einecha, v'ktabtam al mezuzot beitecha v'visharecha. L'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim le'lohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Press them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home, when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy unto your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's turn to the words of Mi Chamocha. The Hebrew is on page 158. praised are you, O God, for redeeming your people Israel. So we turn to the beautiful blessing Hashkivenu, which we read in the evening. We're in the middle of page 161, a prayer as asking God as our guardian. It's literally beseeching of the Almighty to protect us from the dangers of the night, to protect us from the evil angels, from the possibilities of wrongdoing, and all of the other worries that come about as we put our heads to sleep. Page 161. Give us a place to rest, Adonai, our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth, prepare us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporeh sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. We're going to sing this Shabbat evening, Yismechu. For those who celebrate and keep the Sabbath, we call it a delight. It's in the middle, the words are in the middle of page 162 in the prayer book. Tefillah, the 7 essential blessings of the Shabbat evening service. In your prayer books, we're on 164. We sing together the beautiful words from the psalmist to open up our lips and give praise to the Almighty. Middle of page 164. Adonai sevatadita uviagiti latecha. Adonai, open up my lips and my mouth and declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imachenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei
וחולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, איש עיני עפר, מי כמוך לגבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך תמיד ומחיה, ומצמיע ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל.
The third blessing for the holiness of the divine. Let's read the English, page 171. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Let's all be seated now. The fourth blessing to remind us of the holiness of the seventh day and the gift of Shabbat, the completion of the works of creation. We're reading in English on 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. May this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh haShabbat. A metaphorical rendering of the Ritzei prayer. We're reading from page 175, top of the page. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land in Zion, restored in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, shalotcha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. And the prayer of thanksgiving, called the modim, from the verb to give thanks, lahodot. Let's read together in the middle of 177. When we behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you set in place, what are we humans that you are mindful of us? We mortals that you take note of us.
You made us
little less than divine.
Adorned us with glory and majesty. You gave us dominion over your handiwork, laying the work
At our feet.
how
Majestic is your name throughout the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha l'chana'eh lehodot. We conclude this portion with Shalom Rav.
Shalom,
Let's take a pause for our own personal prayers. So we are reading a double portion again, the Shabbat. First is Behar, which means on Mount Sinai. And then Bechukotai, the commandments and the statutes. So just a word about the very first Torah portion, which is all encompassed in chapter 25 of Leviticus. This is really about social policy. How do we govern the country, and how do we adjudicate the land? Who owns the land? Who has to pay debts and mortgages, and how is one to be compensated when we come to the sabbatical year? This is a famous discussion about the Shemitah year, the year of release, the sabbatical year. And then at the 50th year, the year of Yovel, everyone who has been working as, so to speak, an indentured servant is to be freed. Those who are in prison are to be freed. The land is to remain fallow in the 50th year, because what is it all about? It says in verse 23, the land is mine, meaning all the land belongs to God. You are but sojourners and residents with me. No one ultimately owns the land. The land is ultimately the gift of the divine to the Jewish people. And so this whole chapter is talking about what does it mean to let go of the land, let go of our property rights, let go of the idea that we own everything, that everything is ours. It's a very powerful Torah portion. It also reminds us that if a person or a family or a group of people are poor, how are we supposed to treat those people? How are we supposed to take care of them? And there's various verses that talk about leaving the corners, the payat of the field. The corners of the field shall remain fallow, so that those who are disenfranchised, or those who are really very poor, will have something to harvest, something to glean, so that they'll have food and sustenance for their own families. I want to talk about actually the second Torah portion, Bechukotai. And so it starts with the word if in Hebrew, im bechukotai. If you listen, if you follow my statutes and commandments. And you and I know that the word if is a pretty powerful word. If is a little hinge on which the door of destiny hangs. And if you look at the word life, you see in the middle of life is the word if, I-F, right? Someone once said if Cleopatra's nose had been maybe 2 centimeters longer, the destiny of the people of Egypt would have changed. Life reminds us, if reminds us that there's so many contingencies, so many what ifs, so many possibilities that are fraught. How many of us think about all the ifs that have occurred in our own lives? The famous American painter Whistler wanted to be a chemist. He went into West Point. He was given an appointment to West Point. He thought he would become a professional soldier and then a scientist afterwards. But at West Point, he failed his chemistry exams. And thus, his path in life went in a totally different direction and became a great American painter. So what if you had married a different person? What if you had gone to a different college? What if your mother had treated you in a different way? What if you had taken that first job when you were 22 or 3 and it had been something totally different? How many ways can we imagine how the paths of our lives might have meandered in a different direction, if not for that little if? Remember the poem by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken? He says he wonders what would happen if he had happened upon that other path. And then at the end of the poem, he says, but having taken the path he wanted, or he chose, it made all the difference. So we make powerful choices, and I would suggest that spending our lives worrying about the ifs and the what ifs is perhaps a vain and worthless pursuit. I remember as a post-college student working in New York City, I met the celebrated pianist Arthur Rubinstein, one of the greatest pianists of the 20th century. It was just by happenstance. He was at Columbia that day giving a lecture. And he said in his autobiography, he said, most people have an unrealistic approach towards happiness, and it's usually focused on that fatal conjunction, if. You'll hear them say, I'd be happy if I were rich, or if I'd married that other woman, or if so-and-so had really loved me, or if I just had a little more talent, a little more something special, and then I'd be popular and successful, and so many good ifs. And he said in his autobiography, he loved life unconditionally. It didn't matter what would happen to him. He went through some pretty dark times as a young celebrated pianist in Paris in the 20s. But he said unconditionally he had to love life because that fatal conjunction if would have thrown him off and would have forced him to give up his career. So as you and I know, we live in this world of cause and effect. And right now it seems as though the effects of the world are causing all of us great service. The results that we were expecting for this spring have not come about. We all woke up in December and January and thought we're in great shape, we're strong, we're healthy, we're economically viable. And March 15th came around just 2 months ago, and we're all worrying about what are the ifs of our lives? What's going to happen? When will this country come back to its normalcy? When will we transcend the depression and the tsuris and the worries about economic inactivity and the worries about caring for others? That's why this Torah portion is so relevant, because it says, even in difficult times, you have to care for the poor, for the stranger, for the homeless, for those who are less fortunate than yourselves. It doesn't matter when things are good. It matters how you act and how you become in the times that are so challenging, so difficult. This is not a haphazard, a haphazard universe that you and I live in. The scientific world is governed by the laws of nature, right? And those laws in the physical realm are, in a sense, immutable. When things go awry, when bacteria spread, when viruses and contagions spread, it's not because some one person did something bad. It's because the laws of nature are showing us that certain things have gone totally askew. And we're not paying attention to our own natural environment. We too often imagine that we can control everything, that we're so powerful and so great that you and I as little human beings actually have control and destiny over our real world. But the fact is, the Torah says it's not about us. If we plant seeds, who makes the seeds grow? The Almighty makes the seeds grow. One of my dearest friends of blessed memory once wrote a book of poetry called Only God Can Make a Tree. And the harvest that we glean and the vineyards that we bring to harvest, all of those goodies are not only because we planted the right things and placed the correct amount of fertilizer on the fields, but because the Almighty allowed us to create a world that is productive, is joyful, is full of fertility. I think about this very, very much these days because so many people have spoken with me, and probably you've spoken with your dear friends and loved ones and said, I wish I knew what was going to happen in January, February. I would have only done, if only I could have done such, or I would have taken this chunk of money out of my retirement account and put it elsewhere. Or I would have maybe gone on that trip last winter, because we're not going anywhere right now, very soon. If, it's not a negative thought, it is a positive thought. Mordechai Kaplan, who was one of the great Jewish thinkers of the 20th century, said, Judaism is neither optimistic nor pessimistic. It's ifistic. It's based on the word if. If we do the right things, hopefully the Almighty will give us goodies, will protect us, will give us a decent life, will shield us even in times when we're sick or down and out. And the Torah says very clearly in that next portion, if we don't listen to God, and if we don't try and do the best that we can do and act in an ethical, moral way, there are many hardships that we will face. That's why that chapter 26, 27, Leviticus, is kind of a scary chapter. It's called the Tochacha, the warning. God says, if you're strong and follow my commandments, I will give you the rains in their proper season. If not, your fields will be devoured by locusts and by plagues. So we all have to remember what we are doing in this world. We have to remember that a good life is a godly life. And by the word life, remember chaim. What's in the middle of chaim in Hebrew? Chet, yud, yud, mem. In the middle of chaim are the two letters that refer to the divine name, the yud, the double yud. When you have a good life, when we embrace a good life, what we're really holding on to is the Almighty. Adonai. Shabbat Shalom. So we're going to think of our dear friends and congregants, all those in need of strength and healing. The blessing, the prayer for healing is on page 371 in our prayer books, 371. Before we sing, and I would like to ask Alma to lead us in this beautiful song. Let's remember our own dear congregants in need of healing. Reggie Klein, Lynn Kelly, John Scheinberg, Flo Vinnick, Doreen Hertig, any others you're thinking of these days? Helene Marin, singer, and all of our family and friends all over the country, even in Portugal, everybody we need to think of for health and strength and vitality. So let's sing together in the middle, page 371. turn to our closing prayers. We're on 586 in the Siddur, which on the lower portion of the page are the words for Aleinu L'Shabech, or the Aleinu. So if you're able, please stand up as we sing this beautiful prayer together.
Aleinu L'Shabech Adon HaKol, L'Tekenu Al Yotzer Bereshit, Shelo Asanu K'goyim Ratzon, V'lo Samanu K'mishkot Adama, Shelo Samanu K'kohen, V'gor Aleinu K'kol Amonam, V'anachnu Korim, U'mishtachalim, U'modim, Livnei Melech, Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nemar, V'haya Adonai, L'melech Kol haaretz, Vayom Ahu, Yeh Adonai Echad, U'shemo Echad. Let's, if you'll join me please with this beautiful poem before we come to the Kaddish prayer. We're on 593, in the middle of page 593. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns and glows. It is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our light burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen, yet we do not despair. For we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. On this Shabbat, with love and reverence, we remember our dear family members and friends, their yard sites to be observed beginning from this Shabbat till next Friday. With love and devotion, we now recall Burton Crone, husband of Susan Crone, Neil Kroll, husband of Linda Kroll, Lynn Harmon Lamont, mother of Armand Lamont, Richard Millman, friend of our congregation, Harry Podolny, and Burton Tate, father of Marilyn Cohen. So let's turn to the Kaddish prayer, page 598, and we'll all recite the Kaddish together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad yivarach chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayichon v'yomechon, v'chayedachol Beit Yisrael, v'agalah b'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh, yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha brichu. Lela minko birchata b'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, v'amiran b'yama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'cheim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'momav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the Holy One who creates peace on high bring peace to us, to the land of Israel, to all the people of Israel, and to all the good people of this nation. We say together, Amen. Kiddush, which you should all know by heart. The words in the prayer book are on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei b'riah gafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu. Shabbat kadsho v'haba'u ratzon infilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh bereshit. Yehu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh. Zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'charta yotanu kidashta migol amim. V'shabbat kasheka v'yava uvratzon infiltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Thank you again to Jolene and Alma and Windy for wonderful music. Sabbath blessings to everyone, and a special thanks to Lela, who videos us every week and takes care of temple for us. Shabbat Shalom. May it be a blessed Sabbath for everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I've been told I forgot the Hamotzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Special challah courtesy of Alma. B'tei avon, a good appetite to everyone. Shabbat Shalom again.
Shabbat shalom.
I'm not going to fight into it. I'll let you save it for Friday.